One of the most common reasons I see websites lose traffic following a redesign or redevelopment is that their URLs have changed. In some cases, URL changes are expected during that redesign or redevelopment. You might be moving from an old content management system that does URLs one way to a new content management system that handles URLs a different way. And as a result, your URLs are going to need to change. In other cases, there's something about the redesign that necessitates a URL change. Maybe there's a branding change involved, so some of your URLs are going to have to change given the nature of that new brand. Whatever the reason is, if your URLs change, this exposes risk during the redesign or redevelopment and will likely lead to losing some organic traffic. Let's be clear on why. It's not that Google uses URLs as a direct ranking factor. Google really doesn't care what your URL is. That's not going to change where your website shows up in rankings. Rather, what's going on is that URL is used as an identifier on Google's backend. So as Google goes through and crawls the web, they're learning all this information about different pages on your website, which pages have the most links, and this page is about this topic, and so on. And all that information Google has gathered about each particular page on your website needs to be stored in their database. And when they store it in the database, they need some kind of identifier to associate with all that different information. And that identifier is the URL. So if that URL changes, then that identifier associated with all that information has changed. And now Google has to go through and update their database to use the new URL, to use the new identifier. So if you've changed a URL during a redesign or redevelopment, that means Google's got work to do. They've got to recrawl your new website, figure out what those new URLs are, and then go through their database and update everything in their database to use those new URLs. And during that process, while Google's trying to figure everything out with the URL change, you will lose traffic. Google will pull pages out of rankings because they don't know if those pages should still rank in search results or not. They know something changed. They need to figure out what that is before they allow those pages to appear in search results. That's why you can see pretty significant drops in traffic if you change your website's URLs. Now, one of the things that you can do to offset this a bit is implement redirects. So a redirect will tell Google that this URL has moved from this old URL structure to this new URL structure. A redirect is very helpful, and if you have to change your website's URLs during a redesign or redevelopment, you definitely want to implement redirects. This is the best way to signal to Google that something has changed, and a redirect can help speed up the processes that Google has to go through to understand that change. But even with a redirect in place, I've seen URL changes with a redirect still cause sites to lose 5 to 20%, sometimes more, of their organic traffic. In a lot of cases, that setback in traffic is temporary. It might take a few weeks for Google to understand all the URL changes, and then the traffic starts to recover. But I've seen outliers where it takes months or years for the traffic to really come back following URL changes, even with a redirect in place. So my number one recommendation with a redesign or redevelopment project is to do everything you can to not change your URLs. So if you are moving from that old content management system to a new content management system, see if you can change something about that new content management system's setup and configuration to use an old URL structure. There usually are ways to do this. There are definitely ways to do this with WordPress if you're migrating to a WordPress system. By going through those steps and trying to do everything you can to minimize URL changes or eliminate URL changes, you're going to help keep as much traffic as you possibly can following that redesign or redevelopment. If you have any questions about redesigns and redevelopments and how they can affect your website's SEO traffic, you can email me at matthew@elementive.com. If you liked this video, please subscribe for more like it from Elementive. Thanks for watching.